Everyone knows the big Giallo titles, but tonight we're digging deeper. These are the stylish, sinister, and slightly off the beaten path entries that deserve just as much attention. From black-gloved killers to surreal paranoia and twisted mysteries, this is where the genre gets bold, strange, and unforgettable. Let's dive into 10 deep-cut Giallo films that are absolutely worth your time. The Perfume of the Lady in Black, 1974. A research chemist begins experiencing strange visions tied to her childhood and the death of her mother. A mysterious woman in black appears again and again, and everyday reality starts to feel unreliable. Conversations don't line up, memories feel altered, and familiar people seem subtly different. As the episodes intensify, she suspects she's being drawn into a hidden occult circle, though the film keeps open the possibility that her mind is simply breaking under buried trauma. The uncertainty becomes the engine of the suspense, with each scene adding doubt instead of clarity. Directed by Francesco Barilli, this Italian psychological horror film leans away from standard Giallo mystery mechanics and toward mood and subjectivity. The lead performance carries nearly every frame, charting a believable emotional unraveling without exaggeration. Supporting characters are written with deliberate ambiguity, keeping motives unclear. The visual style is dreamlike and fragmented. Distorted angles, color accents, and memory flash cuts mirror the character's mental state. Effects are minimal, with unease built through editing and staging rather than spectacle. European city locations add a quiet Gothic texture. It's a slow-burn psychological horror piece with art house sensibility. Eerie, interpretive, and built on sustained paranoia rather than shocks. A Quiet Place to Kill, 1970. A woman arrives at a seaside villa to finalize her divorce with her wealthy ex-husband. He's there with his new wife, and the visit is meant to be civil and brief. Instead, it turns into a tense emotional chess match almost immediately. Old attraction, jealousy, and resentment resurface fast. The guest begins subtly manipulating both sides of the marriage, testing boundaries and shifting loyalties. What looks like a romantic triangle becomes a strategic power struggle played behind polite conversation and luxury surroundings. This entry leans more toward psychological thriller than traditional Giallo mystery. The suspense grows from seduction, control, and betrayal rather than a masked killer stalking victims. The characters act with calculation, not panic. The coastal villa setting is bright and elegant, which makes the emotional hostility feel even sharper by contrast. Violence is handled with restraint, often suggested rather than shown, keeping the focus on motive and manipulation. It's a sunlit, slow-burn Giallo variant built on interpersonal warfare. Sleek, tense, and driven by character more than body count. What Have You Done to Solange? 1972. A teacher secretly involved with a student witnesses a killing during a private meeting near the river. When more students from the same school are attacked, he quickly becomes a prime suspect. The investigation uncovers buried trauma connected to a former student named Solange. Each new discovery points back to past abuse, hidden responsibility, and institutional silence. The case grows darker the deeper it goes. Unlike many gialli, this story places heavy emphasis on consequences and accountability. The mystery is tied to systemic wrongdoing rather than random madness. That gives the film a heavier emotional weight than typical entries in the genre. The school setting adds structure and unease. Order on the surface, damage underneath. Violence is serious in tone, but not lingered on visually, keeping attention on motive and aftermath. It's widely regarded as one of the most thematically driven Giallo thrillers, somber, investigative, and morally focused. The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, 1972. A family legend warns that a figure known as the Red Queen returns once every century to claim 7 lives. When a wealthy relative dies and a red-cloaked killer appears soon after, the old story suddenly feels very current. The murders target people connected to the same circle, and the growing pattern suggests either a curse or someone using the legend as cover. As suspicion spreads, fear turns inward and family history becomes evidence. This film blends giallo mystery with Gothic curse storytelling. Instead of a purely procedural investigation, the narrative plays with superstition, inheritance, and identity. Clues are layered alongside dream imagery and symbolic color design. The killer's red cloak and masked appearance create one of the more iconic visuals in early 70s Italian thrillers. Murder scenes are stylized and dramatic rather than realistic, staged for visual impact. It stands out as a myth-driven giallo. Elegant, colorful, and structured around legend as much as logic. Death Walks at Midnight, 1972. A fashion model agrees to take part in a controlled drug experiment for a magazine feature. During the session, she experiences a vivid vision of a woman being attacked by a masked figure wearing a spiked metal glove. It feels unreal, until she learns a real unsolved case mirrors exactly what she described. Convinced she witnessed something genuine, she starts asking questions. Police and colleagues dismiss it as a side effect of the drug trial, but her curiosity keeps pushing forward. That attention comes at a cost. Whoever committed the crime now believes she's a threat. The story plays with the gap between hallucination and evidence, letting uncertainty drive the suspense. The lead performance keeps the investigation grounded even as the plot grows more tangled and stylized. Visually, the film leans into classic giallo technique, bold color, unusual camera angles, and carefully staged set pieces. The signature weapon gives the attack scenes a distinctive identity, and Fulci's camera turns modern city locations into spaces of unease. Violence appears in sharp bursts rather than constant display, making those moments stand out more. It's a polished early 70s mystery thriller with strong visual personality and a memorable central hook, a good entry point into Fulci's genre work outside his later splatter titles. The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, 1971. After a deadly plane explosion, a widow travels abroad to claim a large insurance payout. Before she can collect, she's killed. And suddenly everyone connected to the policy becomes a potential target. An investigator and a reporter follow the money trail across multiple countries, uncovering hidden relationships and competing claims. Each new lead creates another suspect and another risk. This is a travel-driven giallo, moving through hotels, city streets, and tourist locations instead of a single confined setting. The mystery builds through financial motive, false identities, and shifting alliances. The pacing favors constant movement, new cities, new clues, new danger, giving it more of an international thriller feel than a chamber mystery. Murders are staged with classic genre style, but the real hook is the insurance puzzle at the center of the plot. It's a globe-trotting giallo built on greed and misdirection, fast, layered, and clue-heavy. Short Night of Glass Dolls, 1971. Aldo Lotto's directorial debut is Italian Giallo filtered through Kafkaesque nightmare. A journalist awakens to discover he's completely paralyzed, mistaken for dead, and about to be autopsied. Conscious but unable to move or communicate, he lies in the morgue while his mind races through the events that led to this moment, his girlfriend's disappearance in Prague, and his investigation into a conspiracy involving powerful figures and missing young women. The film's structure is brilliantly unsettling. We experience the protagonist's helpless terror in the present, while flashbacks reveal his doomed investigation. Jean Sorel plays the paralyzed journalist with voiceover narration that conveys mounting panic as medical examiners prepare to dissect his living body. The Prague locations provide Cold War atmosphere. Beautiful but oppressive, a city where Western journalists asking wrong questions tend to vanish. Lotto builds dread through the ticking clock structure. Each flashback brings us closer to understanding the conspiracy, while the present tense sequences show doctors moving methodically toward the autopsy. The film's treatment of institutional power and conspiracy feels genuinely paranoid, suggesting corruption that extends from street level to the highest echelons of society. The giallo elements, mysterious disappearances, amateur investigation, conspiracy, blend with body horror and political thriller. Ennio Morricone's score adds layers of unease, his music shifting between melancholic and nightmarish as the dual timelines converge. The practical effects for the paralysis sequences make the protagonist's condition viscerally uncomfortable. Short Night of Glass Dolls represents Giallo at its most cerebral and disturbing, prioritizing psychological horror and conspiracy paranoia over elaborate kill sequences. The climax delivers both narrative resolution and visceral horror that justified the film's patient buildup. The House with Laughing Windows, 1976. In a small Italian village surrounded by swamps and silence, a restorer is hired to uncover a church fresco painted by a long-dead artist known for disturbing imagery. As he begins his work, whispers spread through the town, stories of madness, murder, and the painter's obsession with capturing real suffering. The further he digs into the art, the more he realizes that the horror behind it never truly ended. Pupi Avati's The House with Laughing Windows is one of the great slow-burn mysteries of Italian horror, a film steeped in dread rather than spectacle. Instead of Giallo-style excess or flashy violence, it builds unease through atmosphere. Decaying buildings, strange villagers, and the constant hum of something unseen. The beauty of the Italian countryside becomes a trap, its warmth concealing rot beneath the surface. Avati directs with painterly precision, blending mystery, folklore, and psychological terror into a seamless whole. Every clue feels cursed, every smile conceals something sinister. By the time the truth is revealed, the viewer feels as trapped as the protagonist. Surrounded by darkness, hiding in plain sight. Unearthed by horror fans decades later, The House with Laughing Windows has earned its place as a masterpiece of mood and suggestion. Proof that true fear doesn't need spectacle, only silence and time to take root. Torso, 1973. In a quiet Italian university town, a string of brutal murders begins to spread panic among a group of young art students. Someone in a black scarf is stalking women through the winding streets and misty countryside, killing with surgical precision. When a few survivors retreat to a secluded villa for safety, the killer follows, and the real nightmare begins. Sergio Martino's Torso is often considered the bridge between the stylized giallo thrillers of the early 70s and the slasher films that followed. It combines the visual elegance of Italian horror, bold color, hypnotic camera work, and eerie jazz, with a raw intensity that would soon define American exploitation. Susie Kendall leads the cast with quiet vulnerability, grounding the film's violence in genuine fear rather than spectacle. What sets Torso apart is Martino's control of tone. The first half builds with erotic tension and mystery. The second turns into pure survival horror, stripped of music and glamour. What's left is something cold, human, and terrifyingly real. Stylish, shocking, and influential. Torso feels like the moment 1970s horror stopped looking at the killer as art and started feeling their breath on the back of your neck. The Fifth Chord, 1971. Luigi Bazzoni's The Fifth Chord is giallo as Antonioni-influenced art film, a murder mystery more interested in alienation and atmosphere than typical genre thrills. An alcoholic journalist investigates a series of attacks on people connected to his social circle, each victim targeted on days of personal significance. As he digs deeper, the investigation becomes personal odyssey through Rome's empty spaces and hollow relationships. Franco Nero stars as the journalist, playing him with detached cool that barely masks self-destructive tendencies. He's an unreliable protagonist. His drinking, his fragmented memory, his complicated relationships all make him potential suspect as much as investigator. Sylvia Monti and Pamela Tiffin play women in his orbit, each harboring secrets that complicate the mystery. Bazzoni and cinematographer Vittorio Storaro create stunning visual compositions, Rome shot in cold blues and stark architectural frames that emphasize isolation and geometric precision. The city becomes a maze of modern buildings and empty piazzas where characters are dwarfed by their environments. Ennio Morricone's score is jarringly experimental, using industrial sounds and discordant elements that create unease rather than traditional thriller tension. The murder sequences are staged with visual flair, but minimal gore, emphasizing the act's psychological impact over exploitation value. The film's pace is deliberately slow, prioritizing mood and character over plot mechanics. Red herrings and ambiguous clues accumulate without the typical giallo reveals, keeping audiences uncertain about both killer identity and protagonist reliability. The fifth chord divides giallo fans. Some find it pretentious and slow, others consider it the genre's most artistically ambitious entry. It represents Italian thriller cinema, reaching toward art house respectability while maintaining genre framework, creating something beautiful, cold, and genuinely unsettling. That's our list of 10 deep-cut giallo gems, stylish, shocking, and packed with atmosphere. If there's a hidden favorite we missed, let us know in the comments. We're always looking for more overlooked classics to spotlight. If you enjoyed this one, like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into horror's most stylish corners. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite.